How mitapiapi. Hello everyone. The date of this recording is the 3rd of July, 2021. And the reason I'm saying the date is because of recent events regarding the boarding schools. For those of you who have followed this channel for a while, I talk about how around the time of the late 1800s and early 1900s, what was happening to Indian people. We were just being put on reservations, and in those days they were like prison camps, and they took the healers and medicine people and holy people and put them in a mental asylum in Canton, South Dakota. They did this so that Indian people on a reservation would have no place to go to for spiritual matters. And around that time, every reservation was assigned one church denomination. The whole goal was to convert the Indians to either Christianity or Catholicism. And what happened after that is that they took the children, many times by force, from their families and sent them to boarding schools. And this happened both in America and in Canada. It was a very sad time, very hard time. I will talk a little bit more about that. But first I want to say a few things. In the recent days, for those of you who keep an eye on the news, you've read that there were some mass grave sites found at a lot of these schools in Canada. In one grave, I believe that the first one that was reported in the media, there were about 215 bodies that were found. And then a short while later, there was another one where there were about 750 bodies. Amazing. 750 bodies. They're all in unmarked field. When you see this area, you don't realize that there's bodies under there. And then just recently, another school has been found to have about 200 bodies near the building. These are hidden graves. The graves are shallow. That means they were done very quickly. They were dug very quickly, and bodies just thrown in. And this is very sad because it is, it's, I don't know what to say. It's like, it's a testament to what was going on in these schools. There's a lot of brutality there. A lot of teachers that were not qualified to be teachers. They couldn't get their jobs anywhere else. A lot of them were sexual predators. Many of them were sexual predators. And a lot of the schools where this happened in Canada were run by the Catholic Church. Well, what's also been happening is that people have been burning some of the Catholic churches down. And I've read recently that they're also toppling statues of the Queen or whoever. I'm not a Canadian, so I don't know the Canadian history. But I believe Canada was once a British Commonwealth. I don't know if it still is. And a lot of people are very angry, and that's quite understandable. I was angry too when I first heard this, but I was also saddened. I was also, I don't know. It's hard to describe sometimes when I think about this. It's very sad. It's very heartbreaking. You imagine all the parents of these children They had no idea what happened to their children. Just imagine. Just imagine. Even the friends and relatives of these children, one day they see them and the next day they're gone. And they're not sure what happened. In most cases, they didn't say anything. And kids were too scared to ask because, asking the wrong question got you a beating, a humiliation, a sexual molestation. So people were scared for their lives. Now people are older. There's still people alive from that generation. And they're still afraid to talk about this. That's post-traumatic stress disorder. Even when they think about it, boy, they just start crying. I don't know what to say. It's like suddenly, somebody mentions the word boarding school and you can see it in their face. It just changes. They don't know what to say. The sounds come out and they start crying uncontrollably. This is the effect of that. They're scared even now to talk about it. And when we see this, a lot of us get mad. Goddamn Catholic Church. Goddamn Christians. Right away we judge. We've got to be careful in that. We have to really, really be careful in that. In the Lakota Star Knowledge way of living, this teaches that to live our lives actively, this means that we should do our best to take care of ourselves physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. But these are the 4 parts of the selves. And these 4 parts connect to each other. And this connection point is inside of you. It's inside of every one of us. It's inside of every creation. Every member of creation. This point is called the sacred center. And Lakota Star Knowledge teaches that we try to do our best to take care of that so that we communicate in a clear way so that there's no misunderstanding. But it also means that we interpret communication coming to us in a clear way too. So when you see something, it makes you think a certain way. When you touch something, when you feel something, when you smell something, when you taste something, when you hear something. All the senses are involved in this. Interpreting what's coming to your ears, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, when you taste something. This is communication coming into you. So, when you are living a healthy life, it's important to also learn how to interpret this communication coming to you. We have to have a clear mind to do that. For example, if we do not take care of ourselves, then our communication is not healthy. And we may upset people that maybe we're not even aware we're upsetting them. Or maybe we are. Maybe we want to be mean. Maybe we want to be heartless. Because some people choose that road. We are free to choose the road that we want in our life. And the Lakota Star Knowledge teaches about the healthy road. And when you live this way, and as I already explained, taking care of yourself, your total self, When you do that, you're able to communicate in a clear way. You're able to explain yourself clearly to get your point across. But that's only half of the job here. The other half is being able to listen actively, to look at something and really interpret it as clearly as you can. So you see a difficult situation. Yeah, it might get you mad, it might get you scared, it might make you sad, or all of those feelings. But they're just emotions. You can express those feelings, but don't get drunk in those feelings. Don't get drunk in those emotions. You have to bring in your mind. We have a mind and we have a heart. The reason why we have those is because we're supposed to use them together. And what a lot of people do that are unhealthy is they interpret things in an unhealthy way. When they see something, they read about something, they hear something, and right away they get angry. But then they stay in that emotion. They stay in it, they get drunk in it, and this is what leads to acts that will actually make things worse. And this is where revenge comes into the picture. I want to get revenge. I'm burning down this church for my ancestors. That's really what they're saying. I'm so pissed off, I'm burning this church down for my ancestors. Well, that's sad too. Because the ancestors, their souls have moved. They see things from a bigger viewpoint than we do. They see the bigger picture. They see more of the bigger picture than we can even comprehend. That's just a fact. Part of our reason for being on the earth is to learn, so that we can live, so that we can love. But once the soul leaves the body, it's a different situation, and they see things differently. The anger is not there because that stays with the body. That comes from emotions that's developed with the mind, and that stays with the body because that's coming from the brain. The brain is physical. That's coming from the body. The soul doesn't have that. So doing this for your ancestors, this is not how you honor your ancestors. You honor your ancestors by living in a healthy way and living your life as best as you can. And then helping others. So, to do this, we've got to have peace within ourselves first. Reality begins within. First Lakota Star Knowledge concept. So when you have this concept in place, and you're taking care of yourself as best as you can, that means you're communicating from a very sacred source inside of you. That's your sacred center. You have a piece of the grandmother earth there, Unchimakha. You have a piece of Iya there, and there's some other pieces there too. When you take care of yourself totally, these pieces, these sacred pieces, are in your communication. And that also means when you look at a situation, yes, it brings emotions, but then you know that's just an emotion. You express the emotion without hurting anybody, including yourself, and then you bring your mind in. You need that. That's part of our experience here on our beautiful grandmother Earth. We got to use our mind and our hearts together. We cry if it's a sad situation. Then you have to think, how can I honor them? Honor goes with healthy communication. Healthy communication does not include revenge. It does not include aggression. Healthy communication is based on peace. And to get that peace starts within each and every one of us, by each one of us taking care of our total self. That's how we build the peace. So when we speak, our words are words of peace. This is how honor fits into that. Even in a difficulty, we can still be honorable. We can still have respect. We have to have respect for ourselves. When you believe in revenge, that means you have no respect for yourself. It means you do not honor yourself. Again, I'll say, reality begins within. This is a pattern. That means before you can honor somebody, you got to honor yourself. Before you respect somebody, you got to respect yourself. Before you can love somebody, you have to love yourself first, because reality begins within. And then we communicate, because we're designed to communicate. We always have a way to communicate with each other. Even if we don't speak the same language, we still find a way. It's because of love, unconditional love. And revenge is not a part of that. So, to look at something as clear as possible, we have to be taking care of ourselves so that we have clarity inside of ourselves. To see something with clarity, you have to have clarity within yourself. You gotta love yourself, accept yourself. You're wonderful. Regardless of what you think, you are wonderful. You are a blessing. Regardless of what other people say. But you have to believe this. That's when you really live. Life is about learning. We learn so that we can live, so that we can love. And when you have revenge in your heart, you cannot love, which means you don't know how to live, which means you refuse to learn. You're going backwards. You're de-evolving. You're trying to separate all the parts of yourself inside of you. You're trying to separate your heart and your mind, your body and your soul from each other. That's what you're doing when you seek revenge. You will not have clarity, and it will lead you to a worse situation than you've been in before. This is not the road of life. It is a very difficult road. So, I don't applaud these people who are burning the churches. I don't applaud the people who are tearing down statues and so forth. I think, what can I do to honor the ancestors? That's the key word, honor. First, you gotta honor yourself. I already said this, but I'm gonna say it again. How do you honor yourself? You honor yourself by taking care of the 4 parts of yourself as best as you can. This is what builds peace and clarity inside of you. It also builds love. It nurtures love and intimacy. Now you have something to share with others. And how do you do that is done by how you communicate. So when you have peace and clarity inside of you, your communication is that way. And it also means that when something communicates to you, that you're able to interpret it clearly too. So now we look at this news of the boarding schools. If we have clarity and peace within us, we can look at this and express our emotions, whatever they are. Then we bring our mind in. You have to do that because you have it. It's meant for you to use. You can use your heart and mind together. You can do amazing things. And this is one of them. You use your heart and your mind and you look at the situation and you can say, how do I honor them? How can I honor them? Say a prayer. You pray for everybody in the situation. Because we're all on paths. We are all on journeys. And the goal is peace. The goal is love. It's a hard thing. In Lakota, the word to love is tehila. It has a root in there, tehi, that also means difficult. Love includes difficulty. It doesn't mean we accept it, it means we learn from it. And that's what we have to do in this situation, is learn from it. The best way to do that begins within you. To take care of yourself. Strive for that peace within you first. This way you can look at these situations and respond in a more healthy way. Instead of seeking revenge, instead of burning down church buildings. That's not going to do anything. It's not going to make things better. A person with a clear mind can see that. It might make things worse. It's the reason why we have things like sage. It's a cleansing medicine. We've got to cleanse ourselves first. We have to live. Because when we are cleansed, then we're able to see things clearly with love and peace. Back in the late 1800s, when we were placed on reservations, there were prison camps in the beginning. And this is a situation where we couldn't leave. We were not allowed to hunt. Our knives and guns were taken from us. And we were only allowed to eat whatever the American government gave to us, which was really no good food. The quality of the food was okay when it left places like Chicago and stuff like that. But once it got to some of these train stations between there and the reservation, a lot of these handlers would sell it. And then they would buy old food and put that in there instead, and these middlemen would make a lot of money. So what we got on a reservation was bullshit food. It was really no good. And we ended up getting all kinds of diseases like heart diseases, hypertension, diabetes, things like that. And then at the same time, our language and ceremonies were declared illegal by the United States. So we were hit physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Soon after that, our minds became weak. These are the 4 parts of the South. So with the 4 parts of the South being sick, we lost our connection to our sacred center. So we started to focus on communicating away from that. And then the priests came from the various churches, and they learned our ways and said that since our ways conflict with the Bible, that our ways are evil, that they come from Satan. They come from the devil. So in our weakened states, we slowly began to accept that. Now, another thing is that there were some Lakota people that didn't want to accept that. They wanted to hang on to the traditional Lakota Star Knowledge ways.
And if they revolted, they were sent to a mental hospital in Canton, South Dakota, which was set up for all reluctant Indians in America that did not want to become Christianized. They were sent there. And these church priests also committed the medicine men, medicine women, holy men, holy women. They committed all of them to these mental asylums too. This way, the people would not go to them for help, that they would come to the churches. They wanted the Indian people to only go to the priests and not their traditional healers. So they sent the healers to this mental asylum to die. And if you are radical, you were sent there to die too. So while this is happening, the priests are saying to the Indian people, if you believe our way, we will help your children. And so it was a very, very dire straits time. And so a lot of Indians became Christians because of that. Like I said, we were weak-minded too at that point. And those who stuck it out, there were people who refused to accept Christianity, but they went to church anyway. What they were doing was they were putting up a candy store front. On the outside, they were acting like good little Christian Indians, but on the inside they weren't. They were Star Knowledge people. They did this because they didn't want to get sent to that mental asylum to die. That's sad, isn't it? But that's part of what happened back then. And it's because of these people who maintained this knowledge in secret. Thanks to them, they passed it down to certain people, like me, and we still have this knowledge. And I'm sharing it with you. Because this regards the sacred center. And we all have that. This is not a Lakota thing. This is a Ikje Oyate thing. Ikje Oyate means human being. When you live this way, you communicate as a human, not as a Lakota, not as a German, or a Japanese, or an African. You communicate as a human. That's really important to know. So, that's how it was back then. Now remember I said that the priest said to the Indians, we will help your children. So, they took the children away from the parents, sent them to boarding school hundreds of miles away, where these children were tortured to speak only English and learn a civilized Christian way. If they spoke about home, they were tortured. These schools didn't do background checks in those days. The pay was really low. So they got really no good teachers in these schools. A lot of these teachers were sadistic. They got sexual pleasure from torturing people. And here, this is like summer holiday camp for them. And the same thing for perverts. A lot of perverts now had their pick of the litter. And they could get away with it. That's what happened. A lot of these children were murdered. They were killed. They were raped. They were molested. And there's a lot of unmarked graves near these schools. Not all these children are accounted for. So, those who made it through, what they learned was whatever they saw. Because a lot of these children never went back home. They were told by the priests that their families had died and that there was nobody there. And that broke their hearts. This is why some of these children, they were so sad they couldn't eat. And they ended up starving themselves to death. And those who made it through, like I said, they didn't really survive because they were not able to process all these emotional traumas that they experienced. They didn't know how. because the only adults that were around them were these unhealthy, abusive people. Teachers, dorm matrons, cooks, janitors, priests. They were all unhealthy to them. That's all they knew. They learned how to become victims, and they learned how to become abusers to those who they considered weaker than themselves. So they didn't really survive. A lot of these children that made it through these schools, they had a lot of traumas that they didn't know how to deal with, because all they saw was abuse. That's what they learned. There was no adult healthy role models to emulate. And remember I said these children were told that their families were all dead. So they didn't go back during summer holiday. They just stayed at these schools and worked. So when they left these schools, they tried to live in mainstream America. Nobody accepted them. They would say, you're a heathen. You're a dirty Indian. So they couldn't even get jobs off the reservation. And when they went back to the reservation, to their people, they ran into more problems. Many, many times they were not even accepted by their own people, because their own people were saying, you're too white. You act like a white man. So they're caught in between. So a lot of them turned to alcohol to try to hide all of it, to try to forget everything. They turned to alcohol, and then later drugs. There were some who tried to make it. They married each other because they knew each other went through the same thing. And they didn't want their children to go through what they went through. So they didn't teach them the language. They didn't teach them the culture. Those children, the children of these first generation boarding school people, those children are today's elders. When they were born, they didn't learn the language. They didn't learn Lakota Star knowledge. They never got the opportunity to. When you look at an old person on the reservation today, they're not the connection to the ancient past. No, they were born in a Christian background at a time when the reservations were strongly Christian. So this is what happened. That's a native experience that a lot of people don't realize. This is what happened all over America and Canada too. So the next generation, they are sent to boarding school too. No choice. It's a little bit better, but they're still abused. They're still getting treated really no good. And so they grow up, have children, and they don't teach their children anything. What can they teach them? They don't know anything concerning their own language. This is why today most people cannot speak their own language, and what little cultural information they know is Christianized, meaning it's dualistic, and it's not the original ancient form. Okay, so the first generation of Indian kids that were sent to boarding school, since all around them were unhealthy adults who did nothing but abuse them, they didn't receive healthy parenting. They missed things that they should have learned about life. So they're lacking emotional development. So when they grow up, and those who make it through these boarding schools, and then they have children, those children are also lacking that emotional support, that emotional development, because the parents don't know how to do it. All they knew and all they learned was abuse. All they experienced in these schools was abuse. So they have a hard time trying to be a healthy parent. So they do the best that they can. But the children still are not receiving the proper emotional development, the experiences that healthy children should receive from healthy parents. They're still missing that. And so when that second generation grows up, they know even less concerning healthy parenting. And so their children receive even less. And every time this happens, the next generation becomes more dualistic than the previous one. So let me try to say that again. The first generation boarding school kids, they didn't receive proper parenting skills. So when they have children, their children are not receiving healthy training that they should be receiving. They're receiving even less than their parents. Now that second generation, when they grow up, see, they know even less. So when they have children, those children are receiving even less, and it gets worse with each generation, which also means that the less healthy emotional development they receive, the more dualistic they become. So with each generation is more becoming emotionally underdeveloped, they're also becoming more dualistic. So today, it's a huge mess on the reservation. As a whole, we're incredibly underdeveloped emotionally, and we are incredibly dualistic. We're quick to attack each other. We're quick to pull each other down. We're just like the rest of the civilized, dualistic world. Notice I didn't say white man, because this is all over the world. It's not just among white countries. It's all over the world. Wherever there is a dualistic ideology, where one gender is considered less than and property of the other gender, you're going to have incredibly underdeveloped emotional people, which equals incredibly dualistic people. And that is unhealthy. So that started by the time of the late 1800s on the reservation.
Yeah, like I said, that's what happened in the beginning of the reservation. Well, like I said, this is not about hatred. It's not about hating. It's not about blaming. It's about taking responsibility. And we take responsibility by living a healthy life. I'll say this again. It's accomplished by taking care of the four parts of ourselves as best as we can, so that we have peace and love within us, so that we can communicate in a healthy way, and that we can interpret what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we touch, what we feel in a clear way. And we use our minds and our hearts together when we interpret the communication that comes to us. That also means that we listen actively, not just hear somebody talking away, but we listen to them very closely. That's showing respect. It's showing that you respect yourself. So when we look at these experiences, we should be thinking, how can we honor these people who went through that experience and those who have disappeared from that experience? Their bodies are still yet to be found. How can we honor them? It begins within you. Honor yourself first by taking care of yourself as best as you can. Talk with somebody if you need to. But use your heart and your mind together. When you're doing this, the love is really flowing through your body, and peace is coming in. This is how you begin to honor those who've gone through that experience. They're in you. This is how you honor them. Reality begins within. So when you live this way, you're building peace. And the love can really flow in this way. It comes from within you, influences the world around you, influences others around you. All of life, not just people, but all of life, all of creation. This is how you connect to everything. We all have this ability. This is why we in Lakota say everything is related. We are all relations. These are all my relations. Everything inside of you and everything around you. And then Lakota, that's mitaku e oyasing. I'll leave this message with you. I just ask you to think about it. Ohechetuelo, mitaku.
To read more about Lakota Star Knowledge spirituality, you can read my book called Wichocha Otechike. You can see the book cover on the right side of this screen. This book contains the information to what I talk about on my Lakota spirituality videos. To purchase this book, please click below where it says Show More. Clicking on that link will open up the description below, and there you will see a link called To Purchase My Books. As you will see, it's an eBay link. Click on that eBay link, and there you will see the information to get this book. To learn more about speaking the Lakota language, you can read my book called Chante Etanha Ooglake, Speaking from the Heart. You can see the book cover on the right side of this screen. This book contains the information to what I talk about on my Lakota language mini lesson videos. To purchase this book, please click below where it says Show More. Clicking that link will open up the description below, and there you will see a link called To Purchase My Books. As you will see, it's an eBay link. Click on that eBay link, and there you will see the information to get this book. Lila Pilamayelo. Thank you very much.